Hello YouTube. Today we are going to build an e-commerce product details page in Figma. The page contains four sections: a navigation bar at the top, product details section, recommendations, and a footer. And this video series will be having two episodes. In the first episode, that is this video, we will be creating the layout, and second episode we will be creating the detailed interactions like the drop downs, accordions, and the add to cart. Without further delay, let's dive into the tutorial. I will just create a frame. So I'm going to choose a desktop frame. We will create a navigation bar. The one we are going to create have two rows, primary on top and secondary navigation below it. We can start creating links for the primary navigation row. Okay, that should do. And maybe we can just update the font sizes and styles. We'll use 16 pixels and I will use a line height of 24. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply auto layout. So I will just add auto layout to each of these links. Then I'm going to select all the three links and I'm going to create auto layout group. So again the spacing is 0. So yeah, everything is done. Now I'm going to group all these icons together and create an auto layout group. We'll just set it as 0. And I'm going to select both these groups and I'm going to create an auto layout group. So yeah, that is done. And now I can just remove the other rectangle which I created. That was just for visualizing purpose only. So now I can add a background color. I'll just go with white. Okay, now what is missing is I need to add a logo. I have created a logo for my conceptual website, calling it EC shop. Okay, now I'm going to move it on the left edge and we can adjust the vertical alignment to position it in the center. So now we have a primary navigation menu. So you can see that the icons are overflowing. So this is mainly caused by this value here. So we will just change this to auto. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply auto layout to the entire frame. So I have applied auto layout to the entire frame. So you can see that the content is aligned in it. I will just change the background color just for for us to see how it is. So you can see there is unwanted gaps here and there. So I had to fix that. For that I will just set it to fill container. And there is some space on top which is not needed. I will just set it to 0. And we don't need the space in between this item, so I'll just set this also to 0. In order to make it a little more cleaner, I'm going to add a vertical padding on top. So maybe I will just choose 16. I think this should be fine. Maybe you can just reduce a bit. There is no definite rule for this. Use multiples of 4 for creating all these measurements. Here I think we should add some gap in between the logo and the links. So for that I will just group all these 3 links together. Now we can see that within this group there are like 2 children. Like first one is a logo and the second one is the links. So left we'll just name it in a cleaner way. So in the left we will just add little more space in between the icon and the links. So we'll just use 12. Okay, so now we can start working on the secondary navigation. So I will just add some links. So now we can see that the text is duplicated vertical direction, I mean one below the other. So we can clean it up later. For now we will just create all the necessary links. Okay, now I think we have enough links, and now what we can do is now we will just select all the children. So I can either press command A and I can just deselect others. Okay, now we will create an auto layout group and change the direction to horizontal. We can then proceed by applying auto layout to each link in the secondary navigation row. Now we can adjust the spacing between them. We have the secondary nav group ready. Now we can apply a background color to the secondary navigation row, and then we will set the horizontal resizing to fill so that the row will take up the whole container. We can now set a max width to the navigation so that the contents will be always within those set boundaries. I'm going to set a boundary of 1200 pixels, and for that we'll create guides in the design to make it easier for us to see the boundaries while we design. 8200, and I will just align the center, and can just bring in this marker from the right. Okay, now we have the markers. Now we can remove that. We have created the guides. Now we will just rename the layers. We can group these two rows into a single navigation auto layout group. After that we can adjust the horizontal padding to make it align to the guides we created previously. We need to add a background color to the navigation bar so that both the corners are covered. And now we can remove the fill on the primary and secondary now, and we can change the background color to white. We can also add some more space between the secondary navigation items. We have completed step 1, that is to create the navigation bar. Now we are ready to start working on the product details section. We can create some dummy content for the product details, such as product name, short description, and a price. And we will try to use auto layout to make the layout. We have added the dummy content. It's time to group the content and apply auto layout to it. It's horizontal, and I will group it with the title. Yep. And I will again group the color. Okay, now we can group this together. Okay, this should be cool. And we have to show a product image on the left side, so I'm going to create another auto layout group. We'll call it product details. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it in the frame. So yeah, before that I think we will make a small change to navigation bar. So I had set the horizontal padding to the navigation bar. I will remove it and make it 0. I'm going to select the entire frame, and then I'm going to add a padding. So this should be good, and I will just change this to fill container, and I will select both of the inner children, and I'm going to set it fill container. So you can see that now it's taking 50-50 space. So this is 50% and this 50%, and now we can adjust the spacing in between the image and the details. So we will just go here, and maybe we'll choose 40. Yeah, so we will call this as image section. Yeah, I will just add an auto layout to the image section. Okay, now I can just copy some images. So I copied some images. I will just select this, and we will replace here inside it. Okay, now we have an image. Now let's style the text. I will just use a font size of 36. You can see that the text is getting cropped a little bit. We need to adjust the line height property to sort it out. I will also move the part of title to the next line. This is just a personal preference. I feel this is more legible. Maybe I'll add some space on top. So for that I'll just click on this individual padding. So I'll change this to 40 or 60. Yeah, there is no particular rule for this. You can choose whatever you feel is right. And we'll just increase the font size to a little bit, and I'll update the line height to 150% or maybe 28 pixels. I will set that same line height for this one as well. Yep, so we have that. So maybe we will add an image as well. So for that I will just copy as image. I will just add an auto layout, then change the direction, maybe set it to 12. and group it together with the color. So add an auto layout group. Okay, so we have it here. Now we can add a drop down to select the size. So I will just create a text layer with select size, then I will just apply auto layout and add a stroke, and we can add a drop down arrow. What you see is like the content is getting on the center, so we should align it on the both ends. So I'll just change it to auto, and I will update the padding to 12. I'm going to paste it in this, and you can set it to full container so that it takes the whole width. And I'll just duplicate it, and I will create a button to add to bag. I will now create an auto layout group with the drop down and the button. We can change the style to make it look more like a button. So now I will add a favorite button here. So for that I will just add that. Within that we will add a favorite icon. Now we can see that it's taking half 50-50 space, like 50% of the whole area. We don't need it. We need to have a wide add to back button, so we will adjust the width of the favorite button. So we will set it to fixed width, and we will change it to 44. Yep, now it's looking good. Now what we need is, now we need to add a little bit details about the product, so we can add that. So for that I'm going to create some text layer. So okay, so we have the text. We will create auto layout groups for each row. After that we can move it into our designs. We can group all rows together into a single auto layout group, and then adjust the spacing and alignment between them to make it look cleaner. So I'm going to add a stroke, then I'm going to adjust the spacing a bit. You can see that the stroke is overlapping, so I will just set it to -1. Okay, now we have something clean, so we can make it a little more colorful by adding an icon to this and set it to vertical. Add a space, same for returns policy. Okay, now we'll set it in the vertical. So you can see that height of this each row is 52, so this is only 44. We can just make some adjustments here. So the height is 32, and we will change line height to 32 of each of this. Maybe I can add little more space to this. I will just add a vertical space. Yep, I think this is looking better than earlier. Now we will add an accordion to show more details about the product. For that we will create two text layers and then apply auto layout. And then maybe we can add a right arrow before the text. Now we can select this and add auto layout, set it to 0, and maybe add a stroke to all of this. and we can set both to fill container. Now we can paste it into our main design. So you can see that the accordion is getting, or the component which we just created is getting cropped. For that we can just change into hug contents and maybe add a padding bottom. So we'll just add a padding bottom. Okay, so we will just set it to fill so that it takes the entire width. So we can tweak the style of this by little bit. Instead of showing stroke on all sides, we can just show only in the bottom or on the top. So yeah, we can just set it to top. Maybe we can add one in the bottom as well. We'll just add a dummy content in the bottom. So yeah, just to add the stroke at the bottom. This icon looks a bit weird for me. Maybe I'll copy this one here. Yeah, I think this is looking better than previous. Okay, now we can add more images. We can just add all the images. So I will just copy that image and will paste it here. So yeah, so we can see that the images are getting, taking too much space. So we can group this one and add auto layout, and yeah, looks. So I will adjust this space. Yeah, fill. Okay, this looks all right. And we have to add the other image as well. So for that I will just copy paste auto layout. Okay, this is looking all right, and for now I will just hide all the three yellow images. So I will just change to yellow, and I will just change the layer property to 0 for now. I will change this to black. Product detail section is completed. We will add the interactions for the drop down and the accordion in the next part of the video. We can now move on to the next step, that is to create the recommendation section. Within this section we have to create recommendation card, and I think the easiest way is to use components and variants. So let's do it. We can start by creating the title for the section, followed by the card component, and each card component will be having an image and a product title and a product description and a price. Now we will make some style changes, and then I will copy some images. I'm going to rename all this into recommendation images. So I will call this as image 1. So why am I using this format? You will understand it soon. So I'm just going to go with it, and I am going to rename it as image 2, image 3 and image 4. Okay, so I'm going to select all this, and I'm going to create a component, create multiple components. So you can see recommendation image / image 1, image 2, image 3. So I'm going to cut it here, and I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to add an auto layout. So we'll set it to 0, and yeah, this should be also within this auto layout. So I'm going to select all this text. I'm setting to fill container, and I'm going to create a component here. So I'll call this component as recommendation card. Okay, so we have that, and I'm going to create properties for this component. So I'll just select the title and I will create this create text property. I'll call it as product title. Then I'll select the other one and I'll create a next property called product or this description, and this amount as price. So we have different properties. Maybe I'll adjust the spacing a bit between this, so I will add an auto layout. Then I will group this, and so yeah, we have created a component. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to create variants for that component. So you can see that I've created a variant of that component. And why did we create variant? So now I can duplicate it as much as I want, and I'll just create 4 copies. Then I'm going to group them into add out layout, adjust the spacing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to update the images. Now we can change the properties of the different ones. I can change the price to 320. Here you can see that I'm not able to change the image. So what I can do is that I can go to the component and I will select this button over here. I'll call this image, and I can add this select preferred values, and I'm going to check the images. So since I had used this slash here, like recommendation image slash image 1, image 2, image 3, you can see that these are all grouped into one item called recommendation images. Yep, now you can see image 1, image 2, image 3, and you can create property from here. Okay, now what I can do is I can go to each of the card and I can select different image. So I can go here, image 3, image 4. Okay, this both looks very much similar. Okay, that's all right. And what is missing here is that we need to add a title for this section. So I will add an auto layout, or I will just add a group, command G, and I will copy the title from here, and I'm going to add auto layout to this. So for some reason this more from image designer title is getting an absolute positioning. So I'll just turn it off and I will move it on top. So maybe I can increase the font size of this to 40, and I will change it line height to 48. So I think this is what I can do is I can just add little more space on top and bottom. And maybe add a space between the title and the image. Maybe we can also add a see more button. So see more. So I'll make it an auto layout again. Okay, so we have it here. So now we can see that it's getting cropped out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a max height, max width. So I will just set it to max width as 1024. You can see that see more is now aligned in the straight line. We will rename the group as recommendation section and its children as header and cards. After that, we can make this recommendation section as a component. Maybe we can just move the original component outside and copy an instance of the component into the design. It is not really mandatory, but it's just a best practice to do that. And similar to what we did previously on the card component, we will create a property for the title of the component. So I will just create a section called components. Maybe I will just change this into a different color. Yep. Okay, I think this should be fine. So these are all the main components. I think we have the sections ready, and now we can go and create a footer section. So we'll just create a simple footer. So I will just add some links to the footer. I don't want to make this tutorial very long. We have created a footer. It's just a simple auto layout group, and now we can move it into the designs and set it to fill. Now I can remove the bottom space, maybe add a little bit of space at the bottom here for the footer. So we have the footer component. I will just rename it to footer. Now let's create the prototype. I will select custom size, and we can use a length and breadth of 1440 and 1000, and maybe we can also change the background color. Yeah, this should be good. Now let's check the prototype in action. From looking at it, I feel it needs a little more UI tweaks, like adjusting the spacing and font sizes. Now let's make those changes. Yep, and maybe increase the spacing between the items and reduce the font size and use 14 pixels font size. I think maybe we can add a border bottom for this navigation bar and use a very light color. So here you can see that border is there, but it's not extending till the end. So for that we should have to make some rearrangements for the designs. We will set the horizontal padding as 0, and we will set a max width to the different sections. We can start with the navigation bar, and then we can set a max width for primary and secondary navigation. Then we will change the alignment to center. Okay, that is done. After that we can now set the max width for the product details section, and then align it in the center. So product details section is done. Now we will do the same for the footer, since we already had done the same for the recommendation component. Okay, we have completed this. We can now look at the prototype. Yep, now it looks better, and probably we can add more space between the sections. We can just change it in something like this, and now we should add some spacing to the footer section. So now we can make this header section fixed. I mean, when someone scrolls, you can make it sticky top. So that is made sticky. So now we can see that when I scroll, the navigation bar is staying at the top, but it is getting overlapped by the content. So for that, what you have to do is we have to go and select the frame and go to this little bit 3 dots here and change it to first on top. Yep, this is fixed. This is looking good. Now what we can do is we can add a horizontal scroll for this section. So for that, we can go to the parent component. We can select the card group and set a max width of 1200, and go to prototype and add horizontal scrolling. So if you do that, if you come back to the prototype and if you scroll horizontally, you can see that the cards are moving to the right and left. So the same, since it is a component and a variant, so the same if you make change once in the component, the same will be reflected in the variants as well. So we have the basics ready. We have created the product details page. In the next episode, we will make it responsive and interactive. Please let me know your feedback in the comments. If you find value in the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you and see you in the next one. Bye bye.